Caitlin Clark to the New York Liberty? Confirmed? You guys? For real? So lads, every single team in the WNBA wants Caitlin Clark on their team. Except for maybe the Indiana Fever. But at the end of the day, it's very clear that a lot of teams are trying to get Caitlin Clark.
What if I told you the WNBA's biggest power shift didn't happen during a buzzer beater or a trade deadline, but in a quiet tunnel beneath the Barclays Center, away from the cameras, or so they thought? Caitlin Clark, the league's brightest star, was supposed to be the face of Indiana, the savior, the centerpiece.
Well, we're going to talk about this little scene that took place after the Fever game last night in New York between Sandy Brunello and Caitlin Clark, the New York Liberty, and the agent. The agent. That is what makes this so interesting.
But one viral video flipped everything upside down. A casual conversation suddenly didn't look so casual. A smiling group of stars suddenly didn't feel so innocent. And now, fans are wondering if the Indiana Fever just lost the one thing they couldn't afford to lose. This isn't just a story about basketball. It's about power, loyalty, pressure, and what happens when your superstar starts smiling in someone else's jersey. Let's break down what really happened and why that tunnel moment might be the beginning of something much bigger.
Epic rookie season. Caitlin Clark, in her first eligible year, wins an ESPY award for WNBA Player of the Year. This comes as no surprise. Stephanie White gets asked about it in a post-game interview, and she names about 15 people before giving credit where credit is due. Typical old guard stubbornness that we've gotten used to at this point.
It started with a handshake, but it didn't feel like one. After a tough loss at the hands of the New York Liberty, Caitlin Clark made her way through the tunnel under the bright lights of Barclays Center. Cameras flashed, fans leaned over railings for autographs, but what caught the internet's attention wasn't the final score. It was a gathering. A quiet huddle. There was Sandy Brunello, Liberty's head coach, Sabrina Ionescu, MVP Breanna Stewart, and, perhaps most telling, Clark's agent, Erin Kane, standing directly in the middle of it all. No security, no urgency, no rush to separate. Just smiles, shoulder taps, and a vibe that screamed more than friendship.
And after the game, Sabrina Ionescu says, hey, Caitlin, come to the back with us real quick. Only for Caitlin Clark to see Sandy Brunello standing there, Breanna Stewart standing there, and her agent all lying in wait to pounce on the opportunity to sell Caitlin Clark on the New York Liberty. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
This didn't look like an accidental run-in after a competitive game. It looked like a scene straight out of NBA free agency. Calm, calculated, and camera-ready. And it didn't take long for the internet to ask the question nobody wanted to say out loud. Is Caitlin Clark planning her escape? Technically, no one broke the rules. Or at least, not in a way that's punishable.
Heard about it, but during the game, Caitlin got honored as the WNBA Player of the Year in the ESPYs. Just what does it mean to have her impact so far? I mean, there are a lot of really good players in this league, and she got honored as the best player in the league by the ESPYs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she continues to get new awards. She continues to break barriers. She continues to do things that we haven't seen before. I mean, you know, obviously you think about the Stewies MVPs of the league, and you know, championship winners, and Asia's MVPs of the league and championship winners, and of course Sue Bird, who was sitting, you know, in. Instead
of celebrating her own player, she rattled off names like Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson, and Sue Bird before she even mentioned Clark.
The WNBA's anti-tampering policy prohibits formal recruitment of contracted players. But what happens when there's no microphone, no paperwork, no blatant offer? Just a warm chat with a rival coach, some all-stars, and the most in-demand agent in women's sports? It was perfectly orchestrated, or suspiciously convenient. The timing couldn't have been worse for Indiana. Clark, already frustrated and worn down, stood laughing in that tunnel like she'd found a new home. And while fans debated whether this was tampering or just harmless talk, The damage was already done. Trust was broken. Lines were blurred. And the seed of doubt had been planted in the hearts of Fever fans everywhere.
And there you see it. Sandy Brondello, hand on Caitlin Clark's shoulder. Brianna Stewart there. Sabrina Ionescu there. Caitlin Clark's agent, Erin Kane, is there. But Sandy Brondello did show legitimate love to Caitlin Clark. I mean, Caitlin, speculating about Caitlin Clark playing for a team in the future is just silly at this juncture.
If the Fever were trying to hold on to their golden ticket, they didn't show it. Behind closed doors, insiders say team morale has been shaky, leadership inconsistent, and player management all over the place. Caitlin Clark wasn't just drafted to play, she was brought in to transform the franchise. But week after week, we've seen her role shrink when it should expand. One night she plays 35 minutes, the next she's benched in critical moments. There's no rhythm, no protection, and no clear vision. Meanwhile, the Liberty are throwing her love, respect, and opportunity. Sandy Brondello has coached legends like Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner. She knows how to handle greatness. And Indiana? They're still treating Clark like a rookie, not a revolution. You can't expect loyalty when you're offering chaos.
But the Liberty have shown her love. We've seen that as a bit of a theme. There was the moment between Stewie and Clark when Clark came back from injury the first time. And then there were some nice words. I missed the moment myself of them posted up there for a second. But there were some nice words from Liberty coach Sandy Brondello that I did capture.
What made the tunnel video even more chilling was that it came just days after Caitlin re-aggravated a groin injury. A brutal, nagging issue that has haunted her since preseason. Fans watched her hobble off the court, her body language betraying the pain she tried to hide. She reached for her leg. She bent over in frustration. And then, in one unforgettable moment, she buried her head into the padding under the basket and broke down in tears. This wasn't a bad shooting night. This wasn't a mental lapse. This was a physical and emotional collapse in real time. And yet, there was no timeout, no press release, no apology from the league. Just silence. And now, that same player, the one they failed to protect, is being wooed by a team that seems to actually value her health, her brand, and her future. All-Star Weekend in Indiana should have been Caitlin Clark's coronation. She led in fan votes, dominated jersey sales, and single-handedly tripled WNBA viewership. The three-point contest, built for her. The All-Star Spotlight, made for her. And yet, she won't be there. After pushing through pain game after game, her body finally gave out. The league's biggest draw will be sidelined, not by choice, but by exhaustion. And while the league pushes forward with confetti and cheer, a question lingers. How did they let it get this far? How did they allow their most valuable asset to be worn down to this point? Because make no mistake, this isn't just an injury, it's a consequence of mismanagement, overexposure, and a failure to protect the one player who's keeping the lights on. What makes this whole thing so eerie is how consistent New York has been all season. While other teams targeted Clark with elbows and shoulder checks, the Liberty backed off. They played her clean. They praised her openly. They never got physical, never trashed her in the media. Instead, they watched, waited, and when the time was right, in that post-game tunnel, they struck. This wasn't just about basketball. It was about branding. The Liberty sent their biggest stars, their coach, and even their mascot to greet Clark. It was a welcome party, not a coincidence. And with names like Stewart and Ionescu rumored to be willing to take pay cuts just to team up with her, the writing might already be on the wall. The question is Indiana even reading it? Think about what New York offers. Not just basketball, everything else. Caitlin Clark in Times Square, Caitlin Clark on late-night shows, Nike billboards, magazine covers, brand deals that stretch from Madison Avenue to international runways. In Indiana, she's a sensation. In New York, she's a global icon. And for a player who's already outgrown the walls of Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the transition almost feels inevitable. This isn't just about who gives her more shots, it's about who gives her more power, more say, more control over the empire she's building. And if you're her agent or her future self, how do you say no to that? Let's be brutally honest. Indiana hasn't done enough. They knew what Clark represented. The numbers don't lie. Highest ticket sales, highest ratings, sold-out arenas. She's the reason WNBA games are on primetime networks. And yet, they keep benching her like she's just another rookie. They keep dodging hard questions. They keep failing to build a system that highlights what she does best. And now, they've watched as their star player smiled through a defeat. Not because she's happy about losing, but because she may have just found her future elsewhere. Every missed opportunity, every poor rotation, every ignored foul, it all adds up. And eventually, the bill comes due. Here's the scary part. Caitlin doesn't even need to say anything. She just needs to wait. Her rookie deal runs just a few years. When that time's up, she hits the market with more leverage than any WNBA player has ever had. She's not just a player, she's a brand. And every team in the league, including New York, will be lined up to offer her everything Indiana couldn't. What we saw in the tunnel? That was just the preview. Because Clark doesn't have to demand a trade. She doesn't have to tweet cryptic messages or call out her coaches. She just needs to walk. And the whole balance of power in the WNBA will shift overnight. This isn't about one injury or one game. It's about a pattern. The WNBA let its biggest star take hits without whistles. The Fever threw her into PR events instead of letting her rest. The officials ignored warning signs. And now, as Clark limps into the All-Star break, fans are asking what took so long? Why wasn't anyone protecting her? Why didn't someone pull her when she first showed signs of pain? Why is her agent having tunnel meetings with rival teams instead of injury strategy sessions with Indiana's front office? The answers are uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Because if the system doesn't change, we're not just watching the fall of a team. We're watching the slow burn of a league that's finally getting the spotlight and not knowing what to do with it. In the middle of the chaos, one brief but bizarre moment stood out. During a recent game, Caitlin Clark had a heated exchange with referee number 39. At first, it looked like standard on-court frustration. Players and refs bark at each other all the time. But then something shifted. Clark's face turned. Her body language froze. And within seconds, a member of Indiana's coaching staff was physically holding her back. We still don't know exactly what was said, but the reaction told the story. Whatever came out of that ref's mouth crossed a line, not just of professionalism, but of human decency. And just like that, another layer was added to an already broken system. Because when your star player feels disrespected not only by opponents, coaches, and media, but now by officials, something is seriously wrong. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a reflection of how little protection she truly has on the court. Let's not pretend the league doesn't know what it's doing. Caitlin Clark isn't just an athlete, she's a business. She moves tickets, sells jerseys, drives viewership, and dominates social media algorithms. And the WNBA has used every ounce of that power. They plaster her face across promotional campaigns. They schedule her games for primetime slots. They fly her across the country for interviews and endorsement opportunities. But when it comes to protecting her from injury, from exhaustion, from burnout, they go silent. It's like watching a billion-dollar race car being pushed to its limit on a cracked track with no pit crew. The hits keep coming and the brakes are gone. This is no longer about building a league on her back. It's about whether she'll still be standing by the time they finish. Clark's first WNBA season was supposed to be iconic, and in many ways it is, just not for the reasons anyone hoped. She came in with more hype than any player in league history. She responded with poise, elite playmaking, and highlight-level passes that blew up on every sports feed. But instead of protecting her, the league left her out there exposed. Opponents grabbed her, shoved her, checked her without calls. Refs swallowed their whistles. Teammates stood around watching. Coaches acted like it was all part of the learning curve. But what Clark is going through isn't growth. It's exploitation. She's being used as a target, a magnet for contact, a punching bag for frustration. And worst of all, she's expected to smile through it. Stay humble. Stay quiet. Just keep carrying the league while it breaks her down, 1 minute at a time. While many of Clark's teammates have stayed passive through the physical abuse she's endured, one name keeps surfacing: Sophie Cunningham. Love her or hate her, one thing's undeniable. She steps up. She defends Clark publicly. She brings physical energy on the floor. And unlike many others, she's not afraid to call things out when they cross the line. Fans have started to notice. While other Fever players stand with their hands on their hips, Sophie charges toward the offender. While most give the usual post-game cliches, Sophie speaks with fire. And that contrast has become impossible to ignore. Because in a league starving for leadership and accountability, Caitlin Clark doesn't just need someone to set picks, she needs someone who has her back. And right now, Cunningham might be the only one answering that call. At this point, you'd think the Fever's front office would be scrambling to patch things up, but instead, they're doubling down. President Kelly Krauskopf and GM Lynn Dunn continue making public statements that downplay Clark's status, while private decisions suggest they're more interested in maintaining control than creating success. Reports say the organization sees itself as the Apple of the WNBA, a tech giant of the league. But critics are quick to point out this team hadn't sniffed the playoffs in a decade before Clark arrived. And now they want to act like she's just another cog in the system? It's not just tone deaf, it's delusional. The truth is simple. Caitlin Clark is the brand, not Indiana, not the Fever. Wherever she plays becomes the epicenter of the sport. If the Fever can't grasp that, if they keep treating her like an employee instead of an empire, they're going to lose far more than a player. They'll lose their relevance forever. All of this came to a head during the Connecticut game, a showdown with high stakes, intense pressure, and the wrong kind of history. Just minutes before the buzzer, Caitlin Clark went down. Again. Not in a dramatic tumble, but in a quiet, almost invisible moment of pain. She grimaced. She held her groin. And this time, she couldn't hide it. Even after draining a deep three, even after finishing the possession, her body language betrayed her. She slowed to a walk. She limped. Then she collapsed into the support behind the basket. That image, head bowed, shoulders trembling, told the story better than any highlight ever could. It wasn't just a physical injury, it was an emotional one. And it confirmed what fans had feared for weeks. She's been overused, underprotected, and pushed far past her limit. Imagine just for a second if this was LeBron James, or Steph Curry, or Luka Doncic. Would they be thrown into back-to-back exhibition games on a sore groin? Would they be benched without rhythm or clarity? Would they be left to argue with refs, limp off courts, and face viral footage of their pain without a single statement from the league? No chance. They'd be in a protective bubble, surrounded by trainers, monitored 24/7, and managed like royalty. And that's the problem. Clark isn't just another young talent. She's the reason people are watching. She's the reason the WNBA is trending, and yet she's being treated like she's lucky to be there. But the truth? The league is lucky to have her. And if it doesn't figure that out soon, she won't be around when the cameras stop rolling. That tunnel video wasn't just a moment, it was a message. And if Indiana doesn't hear it, someone else already has. Caitlin Clark gave everything, her health, her pride, her energy, to a league and a team that's still figuring out how to handle greatness. But make no mistake, the next chapter is coming fast. Whether it's in Indiana or under the bright lights of Brooklyn, one thing is clear. Clark's not waiting around for permission. She'll take control. She'll choose her path. And when she does, it won't be quiet. It'll be history. If you believe the WNBA needs to protect its stars before it loses them, drop a Protect Clark in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns just like this, because this league is changing, and Caitlin Clark is leading that change with or without the Fever.